So I'm Brett Webb Mitchell, and I'm glad to be here in Connecticut, and I'm especially glad to be here at Widening the Welcome. I came a few years ago and had a great time. I gave a workshop then and just enjoyed the milling around and the kind of activity, the kind of fervency, the kind of advocacy that I experienced during that time. So I was delighted when the invitation was extended to come and visit again. And so I am a Presbyterian clergy person. But for the last 4 or 5 years in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where my partner and I live, I frequented a lot United Church of Christ of Chapel Hill, which is one of the larger UCC churches and progressive UCC churches in the area in North Carolina, give or take how North Carolina's become regressively more regressive. They've decided to take a step back. So as you will see, I now live in Lake Oswego, Oregon. My partner is taking care of the house, and I'm so happy about that. And I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and my mom still lives there, and so for me it's been a little bit of a homecoming. So that's where I'm coming from. Just a little bit more to explain where we are with this workshop, and then I want to go around and have us introduce ourselves to one another. I taught at Duke Divinity School for over a decade, Christian religious education. I also taught ethics and world religion at North Carolina Central University, which is an historically black college university in Durham, North Carolina. So I like to say that I worked at the two premier institutions of higher ed in Durham, North Carolina. They both thought retrospectively that they were the center of the world. The students thought we were the top HBCU at NCCU, and the students at Duke, they were in their own world. So, but I also have, this is my 8th church that I have now pastored. I have done interim ministry. I've been ordained since 1983, and this is my 8th church that I've been honored to serve as an interim pastor or in the basis of full-time pastor. So I've always had a foot both in the academy as well as in the parish, and it's been my joy to try to mix those two worlds together. I would see myself as a scholar activist and pastor, so that's kind of the world in which I live. So as it said in your job, in the job description, as it said in this workshop description, I'm back in the pastorate and dealing with real issues of money, and what kinds of things happen with money and churches. And so the other hat I wear is, let's see, I was 18, 19 years old when I went to Whitworth, now University, and was working with a group of young adults who were put into a retirement community because where else do you put a group of young adults who live with Down syndrome in the 1970s, but you put them in a most unlikely place, and was the only place, it was before there was any kind of bills going through Congress. This is before ADA and this is before IEPs. And so I have been active, I just turned 60. So I have been active in this work since for 40 years. So I have seen great progress, and I've also seen big steps taken back. And so that's why I thought it would be interesting for us to talk and work through what happens in a church, a congregation, specifically when it comes to the issues of welcoming people with disabilities, broadly speaking, and some of the mess that I've walked into because I have great theories. I've written 4 books on this. I've written the position paper for the Presbyterian Church USA on this. I was the writer and the consultant on this, and I can tell you that it doesn't face reality. So that's why I thought we just have a workshop. I don't plan by the end of the day to give you any answers myself, but for us to work it out and talk about what you've experienced in congregations and what I've experienced, and how do we, as I heard earlier, not only change attitudes, but habits. Because I find that the habits of the church, the habits of faith communities, can be more burdensome and also at times freeing than even just dealing with a mental construct of perception and attitudes. So that's a long introduction to my life. I'd like to just go around the circle and just, if you would say who you are, what church you're coming from, denomination, and what church you're coming from. And if you're a pastor, if you're a lay person, a congregant, however you are currently seeing yourself or being labeled by others.
I'm Mike Novak. I'm right here in Windsor. I'm a member for a long time of the First Church in Windsor, which is arguably the oldest church in the country. It's right here. 1630. So it was very old. Hopefully we're not all that old. But I've served many positions there. Right now I'm the chair of the Board of Outreach. I also come here from a different perspective. I've been for many years a coach of our Windsor Challenger baseball team, which is a little league team for developmentally disabled kids, and I've watched the transition of Challenger. In the 1990s, we had all Down syndrome and cerebral palsy kids playing in the game, and we didn't have very many autistic kids, and we didn't have very many the common kinds of disabilities that you're seeing today. That's because they were there, but they weren't on our team. They didn't come out for our team. So now we don't have any of those kids. Those kids are, all the Down syndrome and the CP kids are in the regular Little League teams. And we now have the autistic kids that have come into this. And I see my church very similar to this. We've had Down syndrome people in our church, and they are us, but we don't have very many autistic kids, and I think they're staying away, and we're probably not as accommodating to them. So,
good. Thanks, Mike.
So I'm Robin Kempster, and I go to First Congregational Church in Berkeley, California, for many years. And I became the volunteer parish nurse there after I retired from my regular job a few years. And I got interested in widening the welcome at the one in Columbus. I was asked to come because of that, but I've got a son who's now 35 with a severe mental illness, so I went through many things in the early days. So I have a big interest in that, and I came. And so my interest was in that, and I came to Columbus, and I got all fired up about A2A. And then I got back to church, and there was this little old me. And I started seeing some of the documents and various things about A2A, and I was overwhelmed. So I kind of put it on hold. And now I found two church members who are kind of joining forces with me around welcoming people with mental illness. So they're all fired up, and one of them heard about the WISE. So she said, gather information. We hope to get a few more people. So now I feel I've got some colleagues, and I'm ready to move forward. And then on another point, as the parish nurse, you sort of figure, I'm only volunteering a little bit. What's come down, I do a lot of transportation arrangement for our seniors who live in a couple facilities outside of town. And those issues about those hearing aids, the battery's not working. That's a big issue, so I got some information about that coil loop.
T-coil.
And somebody told me it costs like $17,000 to install in their church.
It is pricey.
So this is a perfect workshop.
So let's talk. Go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Ann Moan, and I'm a member of Emmanuel UCC in Shillington, Pennsylvania. I've been a member there for over 50 years. And I'm on the church consistory, which is like your council right now. And I'm a new member, and we have a lot of people who are really geared up for change. We have a capital campaign going right now to redo the chancel area of our church to make it more accessible. And on the other note is I am the mom of a disabled young lady, Laura Moan, who is going to be 30 in January, so I'm coming at it from 2 different angles. And we're really looking for guidance, because everybody's sort of gung-ho now, and we want to move forward.
Good. Thanks.
Mhm.
My name is Dan Baker. I'm a recent graduate of Andover Newton Theological School, on the ordination path of the UCC. And while I'm doing that and not able to seek a church yet, I'm serving as a bit of a liaison for the denomination with the school. And I'm here in this group and this whole event kind of for the future of where I may go with my ministry, but also for the seminary and finding ways that we can be more inclusive for everybody. Personally, I've been more touched with mental health issues, and depression, suicide, along with some learning disabilities in my family, but see the importance of everybody. So and kind of like you, kind of seeing that balance of both the academic and the church, trying to see how we can improve both.
Great. Thanks.
I am Jackie Schofield, and I am in care at the Second Congregational Church in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I lost part of my vision while I was in seminary, and that led me to an interest in disability ministry. And because I could not go to church and read the prayers or read the hymns, and it was even difficult getting there, so I stayed home and watched cartoons on Sunday morning, or maybe Joel Osteen.
Wow.
And so now I am the leader of the Disability Ministries team of the Connecticut Conference.
Nice.
And we've been trying to introduce the Accessible to All initiative to the to the Connecticut churches.
Wow. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Gibson, and I'm an interim pastor at the First Congregational Church in Stamford, Connecticut, and I'm also a nurse.
Great.
I've worked mainly in the area of rehab and behavioral health.
Great. Thanks.
I'm Kelly Parrish Lucas, and I came to this workshop because I was really interested in hearing what you had to say about accessibility, and I serve on the Disability Ministry Board, and I wear a lot of hats. So I guess in my local church, where I'm serving right now, I'm the Minister of Education, and we have a young girl with Down syndrome in the Sunday school, who's really a delight, and I'm starting to think about, okay, this time next year we need to do confirmation. How do we do that?
Wow.
So I'm looking for that resource. What's that going to look like for her? And I think it's going to be very individualized.
Good. Okay. Thanks. Hey, Alan.
Yes, hi, I'm Alan Johnson. Hello, good to see you again. I'm a member of the church where my wife is about to retire January 31st after 16 years, and so I have no idea what the hell I'm doing next. So I've been very involved in our local church A2A process, mental health network-wise. Covenant, we've done both of those over the years. And we're the co-founders of the Interfaith Network on mental illness. I've done some stuff nationally. So I'm still very, very concerned on how we deal with issues around disability and mental illness, where many people who are living with mental illness do not see themselves as having a disability. And so the language can be sometimes a little difficult. And so I'd really like to, there is overlap, but there's also distinction as well. And so we're trying to hold that together. In our church, we have an A2A/mental mental health ministry team.
Yeah.
And so we work together, and we work together on programs and everything. But anyway,
Wow.
I'm here to learn more.
Hey, Kristen.
Hey, hello again. Christina Davis, and I'm here from Indianapolis, Indiana, where I serve primarily as the counseling center director. I'm also an assistant professor of pastoral care and counseling there. And so I do focus mainly on mental illness and what it means to be responsive to the needs of folks struggling with that. And yet it's really interesting because our counseling center is very old. The building itself is very old structure, and so we've been grandfathered into some of the codes even.
Wow.
And so there's this sense of the distinctions between what it means to be accommodating to some but not to others.
Yeah.
And I've seen that come up there. And so I do appreciate the attention kind of to next steps and what more can we do for
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate it.
I'm Maria Yoakum. I'm a pastor at Second Congregational Church just up the road in Coventry, about 30 minutes away from here. Been here for about 9 years. Know what you're talking about with the Southern Conference, though, because I was ordained out of the Southern Conference.
Amen, sister.
And attended, the Church of Chapel Hill once or twice when I was a grad student for a year. So, but now, of course, I'm dealing with, the lovely 1849 building with the granite foundation that doesn't allow for much in the way of accommodation, and we tried putting in a stair lift, which on Sunday morning didn't work again, and they said they were going to call somebody, and then they said no, they're not going to call somebody because it's $150 every time we call somebody. So now it's how do we become, this is where our offices are, this is where the restroom in that facility is, so it's money and issues like that. And then we've also got about 4 or 5 children with disabilities coming into our Sunday school that we're, again, like you, we're not to that point yet. We're just still looking at what it looks like when they actually get into a Sunday school class, because they're still preschool. So, okay. So these are some of the things that I'm here looking for some help with and some answers to.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Terry Briggs Pirelli. I'm with Kensington Congregational Church. I'm one of the deacons, and they've sent me here. We are a very white community, and we've just become open and affirming last year, and now we're trying to make that grow and be more inclusive. It's important to us, and many of us, there's several people that get together because we have mentally challenged children with mental health issues, but we have joys and concerns, and nobody ever says, pray for my daughter, because she's got mental illness, and that's hard. So we want to tackle that.
Yeah. Wow, thanks.
I am Reverend Linda Bigler from a place called Lake Oswego, Oregon.
So you know of what I speak of, right?
I beg your pardon?
You know of what I speak of.
Yes. And I'm currently chair of UCC Disabilities Ministries. And I split my time between Lake Oswego UCC and Ainsworth UCC on the east side of Portland. And
those, by the way, those are 2 different worlds. Just to translate a little bit.
Lake Oswego UCC is an upper income, all white church that is some of the most creative upper income individuals I have encountered in my ministry in that income bracket. Ainsworth UCC is working class, comprised of 2 congregations using the same buildings who merged years ago. One was African American.
And they were St. Andrews, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
And the other white. And they live into and truly are multiracial, multicultural. And when I attended seminary, I found the words that matched the feelings I had had as a person with a disability throughout my life in African American music.
Yeah.
And because they expressed the hardship and the overcoming and the whatever. So, my term as chair ends midnight Saturday, and Kelly takes over for me. So I am in discernment as to what's next.
Oh, it's like John Boehner all over again.
Yeah, but I have a different attitude towards Planned Parenthood. So,
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
I'm Ben Anderson. I live in the Black Hills, and we have a city about 20 miles away from the big rocks of Faces. For the last 40 years, I have been a nationwide speaker and advocate, and I used to live in OR in Woodburn. I have a degree in rehab after I got diagnosed as a person with a low IQ, and now I am a speaker and a writer, and I love life.
Wow. Thanks. See, I'm not an expert on any of this, so this is good. We do have enough to kind of break this up into two different groups. And so, who did not get a handout earlier? All right. If you look on the other side of the paper, I had this. I got this from the Portland Art Museum. I love this. This is like us at our church. We're a bunch of old white fuddy-duddies, give or take your one or two interracial couples. And so when I found that, this comes from a card, and I'm using it for one of our session retreats because everyone likes to use the term think outside the box, and then we create a committee around the box to think outside of it, not realizing that we have become the box in the process of doing that. And so that's why this kind of fit today, because what I'm going to ask us to do, I'm going to give us, you are my church session, so I'm going to speak as a Presbyterian, but I know UCC, y'all do the same thing as do the Methodists. We all have committees extraordinaire. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Hot dang. So before I begin, this is the problem. The problem is the gospel. Oh, I had to laugh. So we all know this. We know this well. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? And he said to them, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. And this is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the laws and the prophets. So there's the gospel. Now, for me, currently in the church that I'm currently serving, the issue happens to be welcoming people who are deaf. We've had a great discussion, and we now have ASL. We're one of two Presbyterian churches in our presbytery, which reaches from southern Washington State down to Northern California. We are only one of two Presbyterian churches that has ASL, period. But in even getting to the point of having ASL, or American Sign Language, every Sunday morning, the discussion ranged from why don't we use closed captioning, and why don't we use oral, and why are we doing this at all? And all of those things came up politically. It was just kind of wonderful to see it all come, because again, having sat in the seminary, having sat in the university, and then coming back to ground zero, it was really helpful for me to have to struggle with it again. And to see the politics both coming in from the hard of hearing community as well as the community who understand themselves as deaf, with the Oregon Association of the Deaf and everything else that we've had interfaced with, has been just kind of marvelous. Then we have a community of people who have cochlear implants, and we actually showed a movie called Here and Now, H-E-A-R and Now, and the couple who this film was based upon, it was their life. Their daughter did a documentary, won Sundance Award festivals. It's won Peabody Award, they're probably going to join the church because Sally is a preacher's kid. She's 65 when she got her cochlear implant. Her husband got a cochlear implant as well. His cochlear implant fit better than hers did. Hers took a little while to get going. And members of the church watched it. 99% of the church loved it. 1% didn't because I had 2 or 3 people whose parents were deaf. And they said they would never, ever, ever get a cochlear implant because if you get a cochlear implant, you're actually saying that you being deaf and you using sign language is seen as a something to fix. Mm-hmm. So to go back to the issue of healing, isn't being born deaf just fine? Why are you fixing something when you were born deaf? So that whole thing came into it. So we've had this ongoing discussion. So that's why I wrote down deaf, but you can say your church wants to welcome people who are, and you fill in the blank. But your church is on a budget set for a calendar year. Now, deal with it. Priorities. So I'm going to give you, we're going to go into 2 different groups because we can do this. Yay. In which I'm going to give you all various roles to play within the church. You are the chairperson of this or that committee. Because like I said, to those of you who are late, I said this was going to be a workshop. Mm-hmm. And we are going to work. That is the very definition of workshop. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. 1. Now, stewardship, if you got stewardship, that just means, money. Thank you.
Where in LA are you?
I'm in Hillsdale at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'm good friends with Lynn and Cecil.
Uh-huh.
And I've done more work with Cecil because of the LGBT stuff in the area. Mm-hmm. And it was good. So Ainsworth, just to give you a sense, Ainsworth in Portland, Oregon is across the river. They are the most multi-diverse congregation in the Reformed tradition that we Presbyterians, we're not that diverse as Ainsworth UCC. So therefore we all love Ainsworth UCC because we can hang out with them and feel we're multi-diverse.
They're the crown jewel
they
of our
are.
conference.
So just a little bit of history. So these are your roles, and you're going to go into a session meeting or into a committee meeting, and you choose a disability that a person, and I'm using this generally wide, and I'm being oh so politically incorrect in saying you choose a disability, so I understand that. But I truly want us to struggle with these issues. Because here are some of these larger issues that I'm kind of pointing at in terms of larger issues bubbling around this. Where theologically do you come out on this issue? What I've discovered in my work with congregations is theologically, to go back to what I heard be about curing and healing that was being brought up. We read the passage in the lectionary reading only a few weeks ago about a person being deaf. It was right there with the Syrophoenician woman and Jesus healing. And I had a whole row of people who were listening to the sermon through and communicating with ASL, American Sign Language. And I thought, how are you hearing this passage as I'm reading this? And so there are those who are all for integration in my church and churches I've worked with. I also work with enough churches that would like to have a separate Sunday school for adults with intellectual disabilities and advocate for separate but equal kinds of program within the context of the church. Worship should be, and for UCC and Presbyterians alike, we are word-based, we are language-based, not so much on the symbols. What's good about my church, current church, is we do sermons by PowerPoint presentations. So we have a massive screen that was put in when before I got there. We also have a band, and my deaf community people like to be as close. Those people who are deaf like to be as close to the drum set as possible. So got that. In fact, the one person with a cochlear implant, she loves Grateful Dead and anything that's hard metal rock. So the issue is integration versus separate but equal, because I still find congregations, I still find pastors who are up for creating a worship service that is for people with intellectual challenges. We have a parish associate in ministry, who works with people living with mental illness. And so we are lucky that we have a person we could designate to that, and she's creating a committee. But there are a lot of people who say, why are we creating one more committee? How do we bring them more? How do we go beyond creating a committee to being more just generally inclusive? So we're struggling with that. So theologically, we're dealing with the issue of integration of all and welcome all and finding our place of growth versus those who want separate but equal programs. You can call it the mainstream or / inclusion approach to the 1950s model of doing education and institutionalization that we had going on in the 50s and 60s. Those two approaches still are alive and living well within the context of the congregations in which we live. And there's not much, those of us who are seminary trained, there's not much out there that goes beyond that gives us a vision beyond that. So total integration or separate but equal, those are there. The politics of the disability community, I think that needs to also be brought into this. There are those of you here, I know Alan has great experience with this. The National Association of People with Mental Illness at NAMI. I saw there are folks here today, this weekend. The deaf community I've gone to the meetings of the Oregon Association of the Deaf, and I am one duck out of water when I come into those issues, which is good, which is fine. I'm learning my sign language, quickly getting back up, but I also know that there are things that go on with the Association of Folks with Intellectual Challenges. So the politics of all the disability rights community stuff also comes into the discussion. And I have to deal with that as a pastor. So there's both the theological as well as the political. Then the reality is money. We serve a community of people which our church is drying up. We're looking at, do we have to merge with another church? We are a congregation in which the average age is 70 or 80. And we're white and wealthy and prosperous. We have a budget of $500,000. We'll only be able to do that for another few years before we won't be able to sustain that. And most UC churches are not unlike our Presbyterian Church. So we have dwindling funds. And so in these buildings built in the 1830s, 1630s, and earlier, it really is an issue. So when talking about the larger issues around us, then there's this issue. There are those who say, along with the film of Kevin Costner's fame, if you build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. Do you create programs prior to you having, quote, identified, unquote, anyone with a disability? Because the secret reality is the church is full of people living with actual physical, visible, or hidden disabilities. However we define that. But congregations have this habit of thinking there's no one here with a disability. I keep on saying, and like I said, I've been doing this stuff for 40 years. If you live long enough, you get one. So I'm still not convinced why we're having a problem with that. But be that as it may, we have to really struggle with that. The congregations wait until there's someone with a disability who comes knocking on the door hard enough, if they have the ability to knock, to say open. I'm sure they're wondering what's going on. But are wondering enough what's going on. Do we build it before they come in hopes that they do come? And I've gone to a lot of churches which built a lot of wonderful wheelchair ramps and forgot to invite anyone to come. Or they built the ramp before asking anyone, how do you build a ramp? And they, the ramps are like that, and the doors swing out and things like that. By the way, I found out for electronic doors, it costs $4,000, $4,000 to $5,000 to $6,000 to $8,000 to build one door that's electronic. Put that in your budget. So when I want to have the fancy doors that swing open, that slide open, and things like that, and they say $8,000, and the cooling system in this church ain't working anymore, and the heaters are about to go, and the roof is going to cost $100,000 to fix, how do we do this? So that's why do we first, the issue is first, do we create it? If we build it, will they come? Kevin Costner, thank you very much, Field of Dreams. Or second, we only work with the people who have self-identified and said, I like your church, why, I don't know, but I grew up in this church, and therefore I want to come and be more, I want to bring my brother, sister, and it is going to be personal relationship because even with A2A, and I have sat on with, I've been on parts of councils and gatherings of the World Council of Churches, National Council of Churches, Presbyterian Church USA, as well as UCC and other church. I've sat on and been part of those discussions. And it always boils down to, well, someone had a member of the family who was living with, or I came down with. And as much as I taught at Duke Divinity School, the issues, the politics of welcoming people with disabilities into churches, most of my students didn't listen to me until they had a child born with Down syndrome, didn't listen to me until they had a child diagnosed as Asperger's, autism, didn't listen to me until spina bifida came into their lives. And so forth and so on. So,
can I add one thing?
yes.
There's a law on books that is against the law for a public building to have somebody come in the back. Is against the law.
As a public building.
In a public building. And my argument is, if it is against the law in public buildings, why is it against the law for the body of Christ and the community?
All right, so hold on to that, because you're absolutely right. Separation of church and state, something that Kim Davis doesn't understand at all, but separation of church and state does come into the issues that we have to play with. So you're at a church session meeting. You're at a council meeting of your church. You have your roles before you. And I want you to discuss, and you're on a limited budget, in which identify a disability concern that's been raised and what you're going to do about it, and talk about and this is what churches do, we talk about the pluses and the minuses. We bring out scripture in odd places. We come up with a sheet of paper in which we put the pros and the cons on different sides of the paper, and we go ahead and we make those decisions. That's how churches do it. There is no other way around it. Am I right? Okay. So I'm dealing with the tangible realities of what I now live with. Not the books that I've written. So forget anything I've ever said or written, and you thought, wow, he's really smart about that, because I'm back to realities, and I see the next book coming out now, and that is, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to be this hard. So forget everything we taught you at seminary. So go on into your own little groups and just take around 15 minutes to discuss. I left it really open and general, because I didn't want to over-prescribe exactly what I want you to deal with, but I want you to deal with those realities. And by the way, those who are designated to pastor, no, you don't get to run it. As we all know.
I don't know why I'm the designated pastor.
I may you.
Somebody else.
I thought you did. Yeah, good seeing you again.
I don't know why. Most of you are.
Yeah, I was in Woodburn.
Yeah.
I was in Woodburn.
Oregon.
40 years ago.
Oh my God.
And I know nothing
I'm
about
really conservative.
So what's your role?
Yes.
You're the welcome person. Jackie, what are you?
I'm sorry?
What is your role?
Buildings and grounds.
Building. Oh, okay.
I love buildings.
And Dan?
Education.
Education.
I'm worship.
Worship.
I'm stewardship.
Worship. Oh, boy. Okay.
For ownership.
Fellowship.
Fellowship.
There you
Fellowship.
go.
Okay. Here, come on.
We've got disabilities
It sounded like hearing was a big thing around here, but it's not in my church, but more for us is autism.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? How many people?
Well, we don't really know because there are it's such a hidden. Autism is the spectrum of autism can be people that are very invasive to the church and some that isn't. And
I understand because I've been trained as a consumer.
Yeah.
Autism was a pretty big item when I was in school.
I don't know. That's
So is that what we want to work on?
Sure.
autism.
Sure.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
Management doesn't have much to do with it.
You
never know.
So maybe we should state a problem or something. I'm an engineer, so I gotta state a problem.
Well, you never know, then you're involved.
So I have a problem. It could be that because we have a large population, or relatively, of kids, let's say, with autism, we need more trained Sunday school teachers. And well, I'm just, yeah, I'm stewardship. I'm not on that yet. I'm just saying, because it could be our problem. We need more adults present during all children and youth activities who are trained to meet the needs of these kids. And so that's could be a problem.
One of the biggest,
I just had a conversation with somebody out there who had a similar problem.
one of the biggest problems with that, and they is together, because I do a lot of consulting to a lot of teachers, is that I'm a special ed teacher, okay? She's a teacher of the deaf. He knows a lot about autism. We do this for a living. We can't volunteer to do it because I'm tired. I work there 5 days a week. I don't want to go to church and do my job again. And that is the problem with trying to get teachers that have spiritual. How do we overcome that? I mean, how do we?
When I taught preschool at my church, which is many years ago, I had a variety of children, and I have no background in teaching. So I went to teachers and asked for guidance in how to deal with certain situations. So I got educated, or we would have a workshop about, different issues and how to handle a child who's acting this way, or, what do you do if a child doesn't want to come into your circle? They want to stay at the tables, but it helped me a lot to go to different teachers and ask their guidance. So they didn't have to get anybody else. They still had me, and I could share it with a lot of other people. So there you wouldn't have to really have a cost. You could just inquire.
As the chair of the Welcome Committee, we have a proposal for you all.
Okay.
And as the chair of the Welcome Committee, what we would like to propose to you from the Welcome Committee is that we think that the church needs to do an overall assessment of their surroundings and of their programs in order to more suitably serve and to be more inclusive of children with autistic children and their parents and families. One of the big issues for children with autism is sensory. And so color is going to be very important. So we may need to look at how our building is painted, the colors of our Sunday school groups. The other thing is the organ, which many people will find very beautiful. can be overpowering to children who are
Well, you gotta
autistic.
make it look
And
symmetrical,
we
you
may
know.
need to look at our music programs and perhaps think about other ways of
This
integrating
is a
music
historic
into
building.
that. So it may mean an
I'm
overhaul
willing
of
to
our music
understand
program.
that, so you can't take you out
But the
on
other
one side
issue is that
without
we may
doing
need
it on the
to
other.
have trained teachers, and we may need to spend money on education and training of our teachers. And we may need to go to the point of, as you were talking about the difficulty of getting teachers, we may need to consider hiring teachers and
Well,
paying them.
this is not in our budget. In our budget, from the stewardship, all the line items are all the whole year spelled out. And you know, we've got the leaking roof. And so how do we decide? And winter's coming, and we're gonna have El Nino. And El Nino is going to really bring a lot of rain, so that's an important thing. And we don't really have the extra funds this year for training, for paid training, and for hiring teachers, as much as we got. You know, we got that leaking roof. You know, our building is like, you know, really old. And
Well, we can also have a special offer.
As a fellowship, why are we even talking about this? They are leaving. Parents are leaving. They do not feel welcome here. They don't, you know, we are not open. You know, we talk about being open, but we, you know, I had a parent last week that came in and she never was welcome, so she left and she told me she would not come back. So why are we talking about this until we fix how we welcome people? Then we can begin to talk about the mechanics of how we serve these people. That is the concern of a committee.
So you're saying welcome them in general,
Yeah.
and then when they get here, fix what's broken.
Yes. Allow them to be concerned to us with what they need, not what.
Part of the welcome is nothing for us without us. You know, please come to our church and then tell us what you need when you get there.
Yes.
But we also have to be aware of what the needs are out there so that people will come in. And we need to know how to deal with that, you know. I mean, do we use our hands to gesture to people when we're welcoming because they might not hear us? It's telling them they're welcome here. You know, that's
It's kind of what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
do you
I thought we did identify, we already have children here.
right.
And the parents are really committed, so I hear what you're saying. This group, there's a certain number of parents who want to stay, and we need to do something.
My wife is a social worker in the school, and she's retired now, but she spent a good deal of time at the University of Connecticut placing social workers in different settings where they could be helpful in solving problems. And this is, they work for free. This is part of their internship, free interns. And so these people could become part of a church as well, and could maybe it would be enough work for one person, one intern to have them go to one church, I think, but they could spend their time with multiple churches. And so there might be something.
That's a very creative idea, because we don't have to pay them.
You don't have to pay them. Right. You do have to sponsor them.
No, I know,
You do have to
but
give
that's a
them a
good
rating,
idea.
and you do have to
Be serious about it.
Be serious,
Right.
intentional. Yeah,
Right.
right. I mean, that's
That's a great idea.
And possibly some expensive special resources.
There are,
to help us, make
I don't know how much, but there are
What are we
some
gonna get for more money to do
Christian
that?
education teaching programs for kids
Accommodations
with
don't actually
autism,
cost.
which you don't need any kind of specialized certification or education to
Right, but a kid that
to study
out
programs.
may not.
I know
Yeah.
that
And
there's,
then who's the person who's going to teach the Sunday school?
people out there that
The person
hope to develop
who teaches
better
special ed in
programs.
public schools 5 days a week doesn't want to come to church.
But, you know,
to
those
do it
programs
again.
are-
In fact, they will tell you to your face.
Available for free or minimal charge
Therefore,
to,
I cannot help you.
you know, get like a basic kit or something?
Well, I'm also,
But I still
no,
think,
go ahead.
I would still think that, people.
Hiring a special person though is.
When you teach, I think in charge, the teachers will need some sort
They
of
come with all this training, which means that
on,
they
to be
command a good bit
sensitive
of money to
to
come for
the
that 1
struggles,
hour.
because it's easy to see,
When they would like to be worshiping with their
behaviors in a way, and to assess them as behavioral issues.
Well, they cost money.
I know.
They cost money.
There we go, I know.
I mean, they got money because I do that. I do that with children, and I'm not cheap because I do it for a living. I'm not cheap. I'm $700 a day. That is my fee. And so, you need to make a commitment. What do we do to look at people with autism?
The other subject I'd like to bring up is the current group of kids we have here. We do have children with autism, but we have 90% who do not. And those parents might think that our focus is on one group in exclusion of theirs, and how do we incorporate the 10% into our curriculum? Instead of having an autism class that meets over there and all the rest of them over here.
I think that needs to, maybe they have a conversation with the parents of the kids whose children are autistic, and find out what works. Do they need a separate class? Can they work in a class with their children? And really start from there. It doesn't make a lot of sense to jump into painting something or changing, a service or something if we find out that, well, no, the kids that we have don't need that right now. I mean, it might be something to think of in the future if we get more. But how do we address those that are with us now? And the only way to best find that out is to talk to them, and then kind of expand on that, extend the conversation to all parents. And I think some good conversations have come of finding different resources. I've remained a little bit quiet on this because the church that I interned at has done this before, so that's curious to see kind of where it went, because I saw a bit of it. We did reach out to a local college that does teach education as a specialty, but also has special education. And that was one idea, was to reach out to those that are interning and doing their student education, and give them an opportunity to intern. And also, it's pretty we were looking into it when I was there. They've started a special service since I left. It's completely, I do it like once a month, and it's solely set aside. It does. It tones down some of the actions and the music. But they were very, they had a group that brought in the parents of those that were, that they knew had children and had that.
All right, so hold on just 1 second. Now you've had wonderful, this is where Presbyterians and UCC folks are so much alike. We talk well, we love to talk about this stuff. As I've learned about living back in Portland, Oregon, we are a city that loves to talk. We don't get much done, but we like to talk. And so now what would be the next action step? Choose one action step in your group. If you've identified any one group of people that you would like to move forward with, try to come up with one action step of how to move forward.
Just to build on your idea, I know.
That's I'm wondering, Linda, if you could ask our visitor in the wheelchair where she would feel most comfortable sitting. I feel like she told you where she would have information about where she'd like to be.
People who
Right.
suggestions, it's never a suggestion, it's always a complaint. It's like, it doesn't work where I am. make it better.
Their parents may
Well,
stay
can you
around.
ask her
But I find that these
where
parents
she
that
would
are
like
over
to
there.
sit?
they've been
Sure,
under
what are we
some
gonna do if she says front and center?
with some of our special needs that are
Well, we need to know where she wants to
And
sit
they
before
know
we
other
can
kids
figure
as
anything
well.
out.
And
Where
they
she
know
would
how
be more
to deal with the
comfortable.
other kids as well, so they're very helpful. We
Well,
wouldn't be able
sure.
to exist without
Okay,
those
I can
parents,
do
'cause
that.
They know your individual
Okay.
situation and they know how to generally deal with
Truthfully, as buildings,
their
I think
resources.
taking out
And
maybe
the
one
same kind of
pew
concept is very
would work.
Church, I think, bringing
because
those
it
parents
it
in
just,
Yeah.
if
letting
we're not
them
going to
tell
church,
you
there's
and
many-
letting them.
I would bring it
since some
back
of
to
them
my-
will probably have to be there
committee and see what they
in that
say.
sense, so let them deal
Well,
with
heck, no one sits in the front pew, we can certainly use that one.
I think that this sort of.
It would be, but it would be more,
Should adopt.
it would be easier for her to be in the back to be, for egress.
And go to the.
And is there
Yeah.
anyone who sits
But
with
the
her?
ramp
And
for
you
the
take out
bathroom
pew,
goes
will she
to-
be able to sit with her?
Not sure.
Maybe be the group that
Oh,
brings
sit with her family?
So that the, so that.
Well, we could
it
put some
becomes-
chairs in
want to
there
do
from
that?
the fellowship hall.
And then.
Why would she want to do that?
Right.
Yes.
Well, there are people who idolize brick and mortar and wood structures. That is their idol. That when you make any changes in the sanctuary,
And go there.
the reverberation goes on and on and on, because there is that praise, there is, we've always done it that wayness, that is part and parcel. And the more historic the church is, the harder it is to move that pew. Or imagine cutting that pew in
That
half.
begins
That
to
is a straight
build
quote from a
community.
member of the church in Westport, Connecticut. that I
Build
brought here.
community.
Around
In terms of, we're not
Open
gonna cut
to
up here
open
because
communications
it's historic
about how
house.
we
We
welcome,
had the same thing.
welcome
In ours,
people.
we had a member
They
who
are
had
the,
an
they are
accident,
the
paralyzed,
catalysts,
mid back
and we
down,
are
you know,
going
he
to
was looking
learn
forward
from
to getting
them
back in church
how
every
to
time, and to
become
find a place where he ended up in the back, and he
open
did come back.
and more welcome,
Because that was the only place they would
it
make
don't
for.
cost money.
Yes.
It don't cost money.
Because people will be willing to.
Well, in the front of
Yeah.
some of churches, you don't have just the pew, there's the rail in front of the pew that you have to deal with also. There was a gentleman who
So
was
often I
at
feel like
a
churches,
Connecticut
they say
church,
we be inclusive or
Brian
welcoming.
turned, and
It's always
he
about
used a wheelchair,
in,
and
literally
we had to have
inclusive,
someone prop
when
open
it's really more
a little
like
door
about
and take
community
them through
and,
Yes.
you know,
the church
needs to be
library to get
including
into the
itself in
sanctuary,
community,
because
make
everywhere
sure
else
how
was
to-
steps.
People will
And the
sniff
cutout
out
was
no
on
matter
the
what
far,
the
far
field is
side
if you're not being
of the
changed.
church, and well, his
You wanna
vision
be-
wasn't so great,
It's
so
supposed to
he
be,
couldn't
you wanna be friendly, you know, you wanna
it was, well, anyway.
care about your
So,
life and what you're
my
what you're
theory is
going
no
through.
one does sit in the
Um,
front pew, so
You know,
who
they'll
would
figure
miss
out
it?
if they just
If
they
it
grow
weren't
and make
there,
money.
there would just be a different front
You know, it's-
pew.
Exactly. Which would be empty.
We tried to take out a pew, I tried to have them take out a pew that
It's tough to
the
let
organist
go of
will let
that
anybody
fact.
sit in anyway, because it's
Yeah,
right behind her.
sometimes you have to
And so there's no
trust
cushion
that
there,
you're in
it's
that
just stuff, and I was like, we took that pew out,
Very
there'd be
more
room to get the wheelchair in, she can sit in the next pew back, his
fee,
wife,
maybe not
but
monetarily
that
right
it
away or whatever, but.
wasn't her.
but
I mean, it's,
and
Our
it
church
grows
has been
some
built
way
in
that
1712,
needs
and we
to
took out a couple pews, not even for people.
I've been in contact with them, if you are.
So, I would be
Yes.
happy to ask
If
this
you-
person,
if you-
it's
if you've
just
been in
that,
the- We don't want your money,
well,
we don't want you to
she's
live.
bound to say
But you-
something
you
to
know,
me
If
about,
they have, if they are new and they have only been there, they've never been there before.
where she'd like to
we
sit and how
have to
she'd like
say,
it done.
we
Am I
really
supposed
need-
to tell her, sure, we can
we
do
don't
that?
pass the
Or
olive,
we'll
but
just,
you
we're
are
gonna
the-
talk about it?
You are the
Yeah.
gift of
My,
the
my sense is what we need to do is listen
You
to
mean
them and more
like
than just
that,
one of us.
You know,
And say,
and
yeah,
to
this is
make people
has
feel
come
with
to our
them,
attention, we
you know,
really,
again,
it's not
you know,
say who we really are,
I was
because
going
we're
back
talking
to
about
that
how the
earlier
attitude
conversation we
in
were
our
having, the
congregation
actual
can also change. And
Including
we can say, this has been a very, you've been very helpful for us to give us, to pay attention to how we are gonna be welcoming and inclusive. So how can we do
Yeah, but
this
you're
together?
being Alan, you're not being.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying that because it doesn't, there's no cost. Except for your
But there is always the reverberation that someone in the church doesn't like what you just did. If the pastor, especially if the pastor went and quote did it, and there's still argument against it, it will fall upon the pastor. She did this, regardless of politics, and that hits. That stings because we pastors like to be liked. So, right?
Well, then I guess it's best that the buildings and the stewardship person come with me. They're the most impacted by whatever she says.
Learn how to interact with.
And the pastor.
Right, but also, and then she's gonna feel ganged up.
Included in that.
Yeah, that might be
Oh,
too much.
ding, 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 ding.
4 people would
I used to belong
forget
to
it.
the big church.
What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Then
Buildings and worship.
$8,500
About worship.
and we broke everything up into neighborhoods.
experience in worship.
And
Leave the door open. We can't.
you got
We
to
won't
know
even talk
people
about
that
the hearsay.
way.
We'll let her say.
And we were able to welcome people that way.
What could be better?
You know, when you have a congregation with
So are you having talks with her then? Because I was thinking Linda seems to have a relationship with her, but you seem a little frustrated with her too. So maybe it's time for her to build a relationship with someone else in
like
Christina.
a baseball game.
Seems willing to do that.
You know,
Willing.
that
I
is
like the idea of having
phenomenal.
another person.
You know, about
Because I
how we
don't
get
want to miss anything,
together.
and I want her to feel supported.
The money would
Now you're
come.
talking like Christina.
I know.
The money would come.
Well, let's bring. Let's go. Come on back.
Take somebody else with.
We're gonna come on back.
Which usually ends up being the pastor. My experience.
Come on back.
Don't work on my copy.
I see it.
Don't work on my career.
Nothing to see that. You got it? Yeah. All right. So there is a scene, this is my favorite scene in Lars and the Real Girl. I don't know if you've seen the film Lars and the Real Girl, but there's a gentleman by the name of Lars. And Lars is, has found himself attracted to this life-size mannequin, and Lars and his girlfriend, who is a life-size mannequin, are joining the community of the church, and there is a church meeting. And in this meeting, they're discussing, very much like what we just did here, they are discussing how to welcome his girlfriend, who is this life-size mannequin. And because it just is so odd to welcome this life-size mannequin. And one of the women says, referring to this gentleman's dead now spouse, your wife was a kleptomaniac. My jewels that she had, my earrings, she was buried with my very earrings. So don't say that we haven't had issues in this church before. And so that was the discussion that we found ourselves in. So let's just kind of, is there a spokesperson for your group that would like to tell us what happened for you in the process?
I'll say.
Sure.
So we were good. Our church has some kids with autism, and we were wondering how we were going to incorporate them and make their religious experience appropriate. But the idea came forward of training our teachers and getting some special teachers who had training, but we had a leaky roof. And so, that kind of wasn't in our budget. Now, one of our members on the outside was involved with a local baseball team of kids. And there was a lot of kids with autism. In fact, there was a majority of them. So we thought of outreaching and going outside our own walls to provide snacks and get involved with this team. and bringing them in. We also,
They're all signed up, by the way.
we also wanted to realize that including the children with autism in the regular classroom was a learning experience for the kids who don't have autism, that those children are welcomed into our group. And anything else?
Wow.
I thought we could engage the parents in the same way that the parents are, just like some of the parents have to be on the field with their kids, with us, that they would probably be in that classroom with their child, and they have a perspective on all the disabilities. They've been immersed in this community for a long time. They deal with all the broad spectrum, and they could be a big help without costing us anything.
I brought up the thing that you did about teachers said they don't want to teach on Sunday morning. I have seen that over and over again as I consult with different congregations throughout the country. I hear teachers that, look, I can't do this, I don't want to do this. You know, if I need to do this, I'm not coming to church because I've been doing it for 5 days a week and I don't want to give up my weekends.
Right.
And so we need to come up with a whole different market for teachers.
I've heard this as well. My church, I'm the only out-gay Presbyterian pastor in the state of Oregon, and one of the concerns of church members was that I would make St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church a gay church. And people have said that I spent too much time already, I've heard this rumor, that I've spent too much time with the people who are deaf. Am I making this a church for the deaf? And so this just because we have 2 members, now almost 4 members, we soon will have 4 members who are deaf, am I making this the deaf church? Is that my secret agenda? Yeah, I have a lot of agendas. This group over here, is a person who wants to report?
Well, I can, since I was the pastor for this group. I'll speak for them. Our situation was we've had a visitor coming to church who uses a wheelchair and has developed a relationship with the welcoming committee, but has been very vocal in complaints to that committee about the fact that the only place she can sit, there's a column that blocks her view. So we went round and round. We started, thinking this would cost us a lot of money and we couldn't change the sanctuary, but we kind of talked about it, and we're gonna go back and talk to this individual to find out where they might like to sit, and then we're gonna meet again and discuss removing maybe 1 pew, because they're historic pews, so we can't cut them. We don't want them cut because they're historic, but the church also is not full. So I reminded my group of this, and they said, well, maybe we'll take a pew out. So we also have a child with an unspecified disability attending the Sunday school. So we talked a little bit about that, but dealt more with the other.
I have a mechanical, and maybe you know this. If a church is on a historic, can they do anything inside to regulate can they cut out a pew? Yeah, are they against the law to do that?
Well, it depends to some degree on whether they have actually gone through the process of being designated as a historic site. And it may depend on then local depending what they went through to get that historic designation, may depend on their regulations as to what they can and cannot do. Usually it's more exterior things, but there can be, depending on
What they were
again, what your
historically,
accrediting
right.
thing is and what you're certified as historic for, that could affect being able to make interior changes as well.
It has blocked bathroom transformations. It has blocked. Many times once you are designated a National Historic Site, God be with you. From a Frank Lloyd Wright building or church to anything built in the 17 or 1600s, and or anything for any other historical purpose, because Martin Luther King Jr. spoke here, or he was the pastor here. All of those churches that have been designated as such really face. I mean, this is hard stuff, and if anything's
Which is why a lot
changed.
will avoid getting those specific designations, but that doesn't change the people inside the church from saying this is a historic
Right.
building and we can't do da-da-da-da-da.
Well, and what we were dealing with a little bit in this group was people have come to worship, to idolize the bricks and the mortar and the wood, and therefore any changes means you've changed. Any changes inside or anything of that building that changes, especially if I bought that thing, you will hear the reverberations. And for those of us who are pastors, any of the changes, while the committee made the decision, it was during your pastorate. It's like a political figure. Anytime during your pastorate, you did it, and you were the one who allowed it, and that will come to fall on you, regardless of what. Because in our team, Christina was doing a wonderful job as a therapist, working with the group in self-identifying who are some other people that could go and meet with the family about moving the pew. But even if they do it, the pastor, she or he, will have to go and be part of that team. And they'll forget about Christina and the other members, but they will remember the pastor. And during his or her time there, so forth and so on. And it's I hate to say it's a political minefield. I think that while I would like to say, sitting in the role of pastor, I would like to say we made these advances. There will be those who say, those weren't advances. You changed my church, and not like how I liked it. And so that all comes to the fore. It's just underneath the surface, and that's something I've appreciated. To go back to what Christina was saying to you earlier about systems theories. We are this web of relationships, and we are connected in myriad ways. As much as we may not even like to think about it, these congregations that we are part of are shaping and forming us both in conscious and unconscious ways, and so that's why if there's one more book in me or one more article that I'd like to focus on is these hard realities, because while we were discussing these, there are some really hard realities that we weren't playing with because we weren't playing in a specific playground. When you come into that specific playground or context, or your church or your church or your church, the personalities that take on a kind of there are those who are willing to work with you, and there are those personalities who will not work with you, because they've always been obstreperous, and they've always thought, this is my church, this is not your church. Or you as pastor, I'll wait you out. If you've been here for 5 years, I've been here 30. So after your pastorate's gone, I'm still here. And I have seen that in institutions, higher ed, as well as the church, as well as the seminary, as well as mental health clinics. So
I was my mother dad, the call committee, called a person with ongoing MS. Okay? He was very good. He was beginning to finish his speech. 3 people behind closed doors, without the cause of knowing it, kicked the guy out. These people, the 3 people, were 3 millionaires. We have 20 millionaires in my congregation, and 3 people kicked him out. Mom and Dad were very upset because Mom and Dad really liked the guy. And they wanted to have a good wake party for him. And they got told that they had to go 50 miles away because we do not want to give him a goodbye party because he is not disabled and he is no longer perfect. And to me, and that happened to my home congregation, and I was just really upset. It just really burned me.
Yep.
You know, and the bishop, I came from the Lutheran Church. The bishop came down in the congregation and said, "Get out of here. We own the church. The bishop don't belong here." It's really hard to deal with a congregation that is not open with anything.
Do I hear an amen?
Amen.
Well, this conversation continues on. We can, like I said, wow, there's a book here, there's an article here. More meetings like this need to happen. More of these examples of how do you meet as a church. And we are dealing with those who are given or elected to have some authority. What do you do with those who are the unelected, who play a pivotal role in the life of congregations? The priorities. How do you prioritize? I hate to say this, but it's been my experience so far that churches prioritize which disability or which person with a disability will be addressed. We are not under ADA. We are not having to provide programs for all, tasks for all, activities for all, or worship for all. And I think, as I say that, I'm very sad to say that. But I also know better the realities of which I was writing to and now writing out of. So
I saw the draft. The draft of ADA was on my desk before it became law because my professor was on the committee to write the law. As a church person,
yep.
No, we are not under the law, but we are under the application of Christ to welcome people. So ADA, we are not trying to go by law, but we are required and commanded by Jesus to put that back in. And now I deal with congregations all the time. I remind them of what that rap would represent when we open and welcome people with wheelchairs.
I was a younger man, and Jenny Thornburg was at a meeting of what was then AAMR, the American Association on Mental Retardation. Before that was AAMD, the American Association on Mental Deficiency. And Jenny was singing the praises of the Americans with Disabilities Act because her husband, Dick Thornburg, had much to do about it. Mm-hmm. And I said to Jenny at that time when she was saying that this will make great changes in the church, I said, Jesus Christ said such things as you shall love your neighbor as yourself. We didn't listen to him then. Why are we not listening? Why do you expect there to be changes today just because there's the ADA? So I think Jesus, before there was ADA, there was Jesus.
Amen. Amen.
Right. So while I'm all for ADA, I do think the words of Jesus are a priori. They were there first. So,
Amen.
And the church still hasn't listened to those. So let's keep on trying to love neighbor as love ourselves. So thank you, and
thank you.
Let's continue the discussion. All right.
All right.